Hello, everybody! I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and we gotta talk about Black Myth Wukong. We gotta mull over this one, because this might be the game of the year. Now, I'm a good few hours into the game at this point. This game is amazing. I'm gonna start with that. It has some performance issues even on PC, and I even had some. However, there's a bit of a caveat. I was kinda stupid and forgot to update my drivers. That fixed a little bit of it, but I think the game has a bigger issue when you're trying to load in a new area, and the frame rate just absolutely tanks. I had a problem before where when I did a perfect dodge, the frame rate would also like hitch a bit. I have not had that issue after a bit of time. It just kind of resolved itself in a weird way. And as I've been playing a bit off stream this morning and towards the end of my first stream with this game, the game was largely smooth. I just want to talk about the performance issues real quick, because as of this point, I haven't had too many issues with this game. They're largely front-loaded, and they weren't all resolved by updating my drivers, but they've mostly been resolved since. Now, the game itself, and I really want to get into this, is super good. The combat is far better and more responsive, and more impactful than I thought it would just watching actual gameplay of it. Playing it for myself, it assuaged my biggest concern going in, which was enemies not reacting in a satisfying manner to me hitting them with my staff. For light attacks, that's kind of true, but you're hitting them with a staff, so it kind of works in that regard. And when you hit them with a big, heavy attack, or an attack that has a bunch of weight behind it, they do stagger, they do feel that impact. And it feels good to hit the enemies in this regard. It's actually a big part of the flow of the combat, is timing your heavy attacks, so that you can kind of stagger the enemy a little bit and break up their overall flow. And as I've become more proficient at this, bosses have really started to fall over for me, whereas before I was kind of struggling. The game so far is rather heavy on boss design and boss fights on the whole. Some people would call it a boss rush. I haven't gotten to a part that's just boss, 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 boss. It's a lot of either linear corridors or little open spaces filled with a bunch of mobs, then that caps off with a boss. Then you move on to the next little area with a bunch of little mobs, which caps off with another boss. And you kind of keep going in that cycle with a few hidden bosses along the way. I've liked every boss so far. Nothing big and grand. There was one really cool fight against a snake bro that had 2 phases, which I really enjoyed. But I think this game has a really good flow to it. And rather quickly, you accumulate numerous different abilities and advantages and kind of spells and techniques that augment your playstyle so that you feel like this big powerful threat going up against this other big powerful threat. The game has a really satisfying pace to the progression in this regard. And the game has some amazing concepts behind it, such as being able to take some of these bosses that you come up against, you take their spirit and you can transform into them to either do a specific move that fight may have had and used against you, or you turn into that guy for a set period of time and can use their moves, their combos on the bosses. There's this wolf that had a twin blade with fiery blades on either end of it. You can kill that boss, who is an optional boss. You beat him, you gain his soul, and then you can transform into that throughout the remainder of the game, at least from what I've played. And I've used that to great effect because it's really powerful, and it's cool, and it's great. You essentially have your own phase 2. And it's been this great, oh crap, button I've been able to just press and get myself out of dodge. Or against certain fights, if I'm playing particularly poorly, and I'm low on HP, and I still have like half the health bar left for the boss, I can pop the wolf transformation, do a bunch of damage, and even out the odds. It's a great feeling to be able to come back in these situations. Not to mention, this game is absolutely gorgeous to no one's surprise. It kind of feels as if no matter where I look, you could have a beautiful screenshot in the making. And I think the reason we're seeing so much success for Black Myth Wukong right now, where according to Steam charts, the game even passed 2.35 million players concurrently at one point. And as of recording this video right now, it's at 2.2 million players and more. I think one of the biggest reasons we are seeing Black Myth Wukong have this level of success is because on first impression with this game, it leaves a lasting one. And so far in my experience with this game, it knows what it is and is unashamed in that. The introduction to this game is grand and epic. A lot of characters speak in poems or rhyme, and the story can be a little bit hard to understand fully as a direct result. It's not a story-heavy game, at least in my experience so far, but there is a lot of story here. Every enemy you come across has a story blurb in a codex-esque situation. Essentially, in the journal, they get their own poem and a brief blurb about some aspect to the narrative. I know before release, some people were talking about how this game is not a Souls-like. I would push against that narrative. There's many elements that seemingly are directly inspired from FromSoft here, but I also don't think that's a bad thing. The emphasis on boss fights and boss design, an emphasis on dodging boss attacks at the right time. I think the game still has its strong identity to it, but do not go into this game expecting it to be more similar to God of War as opposed to a FromSoft game. That was one of the things I heard from some people before this game came out, that the game was more like God of War for Chinese mythology than, say, a FromSoft game or like Elden Ring, which is a FromSoft game. I would push against that narrative, and I would say it's more akin to a FromSoft game than, say, God of War. Either iteration of God of War. So far, though, I haven't really noticed this game to be that hard or that difficult. I mainly die to, like, one beginner boss fight, which is optional. And that was mostly just me becoming acclimated to the pace of the game, and I hadn't unlocked all my abilities yet. As I'm getting into the swing of it, I'm starting to just one-shy most of these bosses. So if you're going into Black Myth Wukong, wanting this extremely difficult experience, I don't know if you would get that without severely limiting what you utilize in-game. Now, when it comes to Black Myth Wukong, I think one of its greatest elements is all of these different tools the game gives you to utilize. These transformations, these spells, the talent trays, the different stances that you can utilize to your own advantage, the different potions. The game also utilizes an Estus Flask-esque system. For those who don't know, essentially you have this one potion that you utilize to heal, and has multiple charges. It'll heal a chunk of your health, but it won't regenerate on its own. You'll have to find the incense locations, which are basically bonfires or rest points, where you can rest there and recharge everything, but also, it will respawn all the mobs you have defeated. The game's a bit more forgiving in this regard as well, as you will unlock the ability to regenerate your gourd by collecting will that drops throughout various places. I like this system. I think it's a great mechanism to heal. However, especially if you are more acclimated with FromSoft games, the gourd in this game takes a bit to actually initiate the drink, because you have to go through the entire animation of your monkey guy taking the gourd out, undoing the top, and then drinking it. It takes a good couple of seconds, so you kind of have to plan around drinking it and make sure you have a large enough of a window to get that heal in. So I would say, if you want to utilize every tool this game gives you, which I would recommend because I think they're really fun to utilize, so far, right now, it hasn't been too difficult, though I hear the difficulty does up later on. I'm just saying, don't expect this game to be like the hardest game you ever played, because I don't think a game needs to be hard to be engaging and fun, because I think it nailed, or at least is showing me that it is getting correct, these elements that are important. The combat feels fun to pull off. The rhythm of the game is engaging. It just is. Getting the flow right, understanding the rhythm of the game, of these bosses, hitting the dodges, learning when to immobilize the enemy with your spell to properly take advantage. Oh, for whatever reason, you may be about to get hit by an ability that you aren't in a position to dodge right now. Immobilize the enemy. Or if you've heavily staggered the enemy, immobilize them there. I didn't think I would enjoy this spell as much as I am. Oh crap, I am surrounded by a bunch of enemies. Let me turn into this giant wolf with a fiery twin blade. It's awesome. Or I can, like, turn myself into this boss fight that had beat me down at the beginning of the game. I can turn into him and headbutt enemies with his special ability. And there's more spells to unlock later on. And while the level design can feel exceptionally linear at times, there are places to go off the beaten path. I discovered a secret area by ringing 3 different bells. I know, because thank you TikTok for spoiling me, I know that the location I just unlocked at the end of my stream will have a new, like, hidden boss fight that I can fight for a new armor set. And that's another thing. The customization and progression in this game is pretty dang cool. If you are familiar with tier sets, the game has that, where if you equip a certain number of the same piece, or the same set, like the bronze set, or the pilgrim set, whatever, you equip a certain number of them, you get an additional bonus. The set I have right now, if I have 4 pieces of it on, while I'm sprinting, I'm generating this attack bonus that's adding on top of itself the longer I sprint. So when I hit an enemy coming out of that sprint, I'm doing more damage. Very simple, but it's augmenting my play. There's another set that I've unlocked, but I haven't been able to craft yet because I'm low on resources, that will give me bonuses for standing in water. So mechanically, this game has been super fun when it comes to just fighting enemies, learning about its world, but also in terms of customizing my character. And you unlock talent points that you can spend on various different benefits to your character at a really good pace. Like, you unlock these relatively often. You combine these elements with meeting random NPCs in the world throughout your play that will further augment yourself, give you additional bonuses, and you always feel as if you're constantly getting stronger. And this early into this game, it's a really good feeling. But there's also another element to this game that I have not seen talked about all that much, and that's just how relaxing this game is. Like, for the most part, this game is so beautiful, and the sound design is so strong, and the lighting is absolutely gorgeous that just walking around this world is a delight in of itself. Even in this initial forest zone, I end up just stopping and smelling the roses and just looking at the little details. At the end of the day, it is just a forest zone, but there's a lot of little details throughout this world that makes it oddly calming and relaxing. And then the adrenaline starts to pump when you're fighting a giant snake bro. I think this is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. It's not only gorgeous graphically, but it's gorgeous in art design as well. The game elects for this minimalistic sound design on the whole, and it's not just constantly shoving music in your ear. It's allowing the sounds of the forest to speak volumes for itself. And when the music does kick in, it feels and sounds really good. I am not all too familiar when it comes to Chinese mythology, but I think this game is doing a great job of, like, introducing these elements to me. So I guess in that regard, you could call it God of War for Chinese mythology, because God of War did something similar for me when it came to Greek and Norse mythology. This game has thoroughly captivated me, and I just want to play more of it. When I'm not playing Black Myth Wukong, I'm thinking of playing Black Myth Wukong. And this is one of the reasons I like doing these first impression videos, because that's what this is. This isn't a review or anything like that, it's a first impressions video, because I'm only a few hours into this game. And while I had some technical hiccups at the start, they've largely remedied themselves since. I also turned off ray tracing, but I'm not sure if that helped any. I got a few more frames out of it, but I'm running a 4080 Super with a 14900 KF. You would hope this game would run well in my machine. But I think this game, in its first impressions, has absolutely blown me away and grabbed me. And I'll be really interested to see if the game can keep up this momentum. If the game can keep me as captivated as I am right now, as I get more and more into the game, as the hours go by and as more and more bosses fall. I want to see even more boss variety. I want to see that same scope, that same epic feeling that the intro gave me later on in this game. These are the elements of Black Myth Wukong I really want to see in the future. I want to see more biomes, which I know are coming. I want to see even wackier boss design. I just want to see more of this game. And I think it's a great position to be in right now. So with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Leave a comment down below with how you have been enjoying Black Myth Wukong if you've been playing it, or how you feel about the game on the whole. Just let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. Stay safe. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!